Second. Hello and welcome to an evening with comrades on Eastern Marshlands. Welcome. It has been a very long time, and please say hello once again to Possidus Pac-Man.
Nuke the whales, save the planet.
As always, welcome Spoogs.
Well, it took long enough.
Welcome Eugene.
Hello, everyone.
And myself, TK Jones, as host. Lads, how are we? It has been a while.
Very long while, yeah. So
Yeah,
my channel recently hit 300 subscribers.
Woo!
For
Congratulations.
somehow. I don't know how I managed to get that many. I'm a little ahead of schedule, to be honest.
Quality shit posts.
Well, yeah. Actually, I think the most of it has come from live streaming. Has come from live streaming Fallout New Vegas recently. I figured that it was best to show Posadism in action, so
I love how you're taking something that people have unironically used to show what Ancapistan might look like and operate, and turn it into like the Possidist heaven.
Well, you see, I'm working on this theory that even though he quotes Hegelian dialectics, I think that Caesar actually operates as an idea of what happens when you take democratic centralism way too far.
Oh my god. You should write an essay like Caesar's Legion as a critique of vanguardist politics.
Well,
Jesus.
because you could argue theoretically that he is sort of. The only problem is the whole slavery and mass murder.
You should like wear a Praetorian Guard uniform, carry a minigun, walk around going, "Hey guys, I've got some Hegelian dialectics at 1,000 rounds per second."
Well, I mean, you see, the thing was, I started doing this playthrough just as something to get in touch with my subscribers, because I'll be honest, my uploads were getting pretty erratic because I'm working full time for the capitalists at the moment, and it's
Yeah,
driving me nuts.
tell us about what you've been up to, because we've been chatting during the unofficial hiatus about your work you've been doing at your workplace, wherever that may be.
So the National Union of Workers in Australia is currently, and I mean currently, expanding its region to wherever I work, and sure enough, they needed a Union vanguard on site. Luckily for me, I happen to be at this workplace, so there has been a lot of radicalization going on.
Nice.
We started from 3 members. We now have 20% of the workforce in the union so far.
20%, Jesus.
That's a lot.
Yes, unfortunately, that's spread across all of our sites. So, like in some areas, it's more concentrated than others, but it's
Still,
not enough.
For the amount of time you've had to build up this movement, as it were, 20% is still pretty huge.
Well, the only problem is, of course, because our industry that I'm in, which is a sales industry, is so A, capitalist, and B, very attritional in nature. Our staff turnover is so high, we can never really get enough concentration to actually push direct action.
Oh, that's not good.
That being said, however, the NUW itself has been expanding quite rapidly, and so there have been a couple of demonstrations recently. None in my town yet, but I hear that there is I hear rumblings of a strike at a industrial site here in Adelaide at some stage.
A strike. Ooh, will it be a general strike?
Oh, my dick gets hard with the idea of that, but no, unfortunately. It's not a general strike, just a normal strike, but there will be solidarity marches, I'm sure, and mutual aid, as it were. But the greatest part about it is that left unity is actually happening at
Really?
my workplace to achieve the unionization goals, because I While I'm not a Marxist-Leninist, I've certainly gone Red Square pretty hardcore recently. I don't know why. I've gone higher on the Red Square recently. Shout out to my comrades in the CMP, of which TK is also a member.
CMP Chamber Marxist Party. It's a laugh ride, I tell you what. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, that could have been a crack.
CNP? You became members of CNP?
The Chamber Marxist Party
It's
is
like a
part
mock
of the
parliament
yeah.
on Facebook, and they hold a Marxist
Okay.
group.
There was like a side note. There was like different parties to try to represent the real world parties. You know, you'd have the Tory equivalent. You know, you'd have the British Labour equivalent. So I think it was called the Chamber Socialist Party, which was
The
basically
CSP.
just
Sock
the
Dems.
yeah. So the people in there that were actually, you know, comrades, who we would call comrades, were like, all right, screw this. We're splitting off. We're forming our own party. And the Chamber Socialist Party was like, you'll never succeed. Jesus Christ. The next mock election at the end of that month, the CMP went from like a no nothing party to the second largest.
Damn.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you know, and I joined this group, like, ever since I became heavily involved in the unions and stuff, like, I went Red Square. I was still pretty much leftcom territory that whole time until started getting more involved in direct action, and it's like, you know, like, now I'm sort of sitting here, I'm like, did the kulaks deserve it? Oh, I don't know. At least some of them did. So now it's sort of getting to the point where it might start happening.
You
Jesus.
should stick around. It's not only for you, Personas Backman, but for people. Me and Dibdab are going to record a podcast today, which is dropping tomorrow, hopefully. Which will be just to address your issue, Personas Backman. How do I be a leftcom and go full on Red Square? And it is easy. It's called Mouse Pontax, and you should look into it. It's literally Maoism situationism, dude.
Well, you see, the thing was that
It's
really.
so fucking powerful and good.
Well, the thing was,
It's amazing. Yeah.
The new
I kind
immortal science.
I kind of, you know, originally I sort of leaned away from it because I'm still very. I guess the best, you know, what's that saying? What's that saying that fucking conservacucks use?
Better dead than red?
No, economic, like socially liberal, economically conservative.
Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The best way I can describe myself is socially libertarian, economically Stalin. Like
Oh,
literally
gotta get on that heavy industry. Whoa.
on the social trend, I'm like, you know that T-shirt that was flying around? I want my gay married couples to protect their marijuana plants with guns.
Yeah.
Basically, that's me just in a communist setting, and then it's like on the economic spectrum, like I am breaking the needle on the left-hand side. It's like nationalize everything. If we can't nationalize it, the workers own it themselves. If it ain't a co-op, the state owns it. That's just it.
Oh.
This is
State-owned
pretty cool.
co-ops.
I must say, state-owned co-ops. This is some real Maoism right here. Real fucking Maoism going on there. But jokes aside, Mouse Pontax is literally like, if you haven't heard about that, basically one of the slogans. I'll just tease you with slogans. One of the slogans was Mao, almost an anarchist. And the second thing about them is it was described as both authoritarian and anti-authoritarian. So those guys are a synthesis of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, with some elements of anarcho-syndicalism, but without Marxism-Leninism.
Why the fuck can
And
I
a lot of-
join?
And it exactly, dude, it's fucking amazing. And me and Dibdam are going to like go through the history of them in context of May 68 in France, because this is when they fucking peaked, and going to talk about their approaches, because like their tactics, because they were very direct action, very on the ground, very, you know, addressing the real issues of the proletariat here and now. You know, they were fucking epic. And that's exactly, it's like literally socially libertarian, economically either Stalinist or full-on anarcho-syndicalist, you know?
Economically Nazbol.
Economically,
Oh,
that's-
God.
Hardline
only
support
production.
for the other Russia party. Hard support.
Hell,
No, economically Nazbol. What is that? What the fuck is that? Like everybody owns the means of production except the Jews. Fuck it.
No. If I don't know about like the German Nazbols, but the Russian Nazbols, this would mean nationalize everything. Corbyn is a fucking Toryite. It's
make-
like let's nationalize everything and move the capital of Russia into Siberia for some reason. That was one of the
They're gonna make
parts of the
Corbyn look like an
program, by the way.
ANCAP.
Yeah, it's basically like they sound like extremely authoritarian police state SOCDEMs on acid.
You have nothing to fear
That's
if
what-
we nationalize fear.
Exactly.
I feel like if we talk about ANCAPs too much, we're going to summon Mr. Dapperton. Oh no, I said his name.
Well, unfortunately, Batco has just messaged me that he can't join us. Unfortunately, seems like he's busy. Oh well,
That's all right,
That's okay.
Batco. He's a good lad.
especially all that shit with esoteric entity that went down recently. God, fucking.
I've been
Oh,
following them,
let's-
man.
let's-
That's
Let's
silly.
talk about that for a
fucking
minute
shit
because
show.
I only got like the tail end of it. I think I got like the takedown videos, obviously. Like all the photoshopped Discord messages.
Oh,
Like,
they weren't
Fake
they
Discord
weren't-
messages.
I
Yeah.
went through like their entire data dump. They weren't fake. It was just like the most arbitrary shit. It's like them going like and searching keywords like age of consent
Oh,
and like taking screenshots of people having like a pretty normal discussion about age of consent laws around the world.
No, it's like I saw that. It's like context completely removed. All right, it's just like what point did Batco say the word rape? Okay, he said it on September 12, 2017. Okay, it says I don't approve of rape, and then there's you've got like esoteric entity. I approve of rape. What? What?
yeah.
What? It's like it's like
It was fucking retarded.
he actually said that. How horrible he is. It's like what you missed is the bit where it's in quotation marks and below it it's like ANCAPs be like or some shit like that. Like literally take every single comment out of context and then edit it to boot.
Hmm.
And it's like fucking like what is this?
It's a constant thing.
2013?
There's 3 lines where it's like the first line is I absolutely hate anybody who says. Then the next line is something like children of 6 should be able to consent to those kind of things. And then the third line is like, how could anybody believe that? That's horrifying. I absolutely do not condone it. And then esoteric entities taken the middle line as evidence. What the fuck? That's not.
And it's
how
just
you do
silly.
that.
Like
I mean, that's giving him way too much credit. That's implying that he like had the like thought process of like cutting some of it out to make it look really bad. It was literally just they would have like just in like screenshot the entire fucking message. It's like, snap. That's going in the fucking data dump.
Jesus Christ.
Like even if it was just a normal fucking conversation or just an off comment.
Did I hear right that they had like a big live stream or something?
Yeah, it
for
was
the
just
drop?
it was like 50 minutes of them circle jerking. It was
Oh
fucking
god.
retarded.
Oh yeah, that's what that guy was talking about. He was saying like, it was like advertised as live stream. We're going to drop the evidence on this live stream. Everybody, hold on to your hernia belts. It's gonna happen. And then the first 30 seconds of the live stream, it's like we're gonna drop the evidence tomorrow.
And never
What the
happened.
shit? What the shit?
and they never heard of him again.
Fuck's sake.
They didn't drop it the day after though. They like dropped it a few days later out of the blue.
Oh god. So I take it that's all like blown over now or something.
Yeah, like,
Nobody cares.
like they were expecting. I think when they dropped it, like, oh, this is gonna fucking ruin leftists, leftist BTFO, leftists wiped off the map.
On suicide watch, that kind of shit.
They've already committed suicide at this point. But when they dropped it, the only thing I remember happening was like Batko and Danov did like an hour like long live stream or just going through and like saying, oh hell, look at this is retarded. And that's all that happened. And yeah, I haven't seen anything from like Esoteric Entity or Filthy Heretic or any of the ANCAP people since the data drop. Like nothing's happened. Nothing has gone over. Lefty Paul's like unofficial Discord server hasn't been shut down or anything. I haven't heard of any arrests yet. Nothing's happened.
No, the funny thing about it for me that got me really laughing was I was watching this whole thing, and I think my comment is still top comment on Batco's video, and it's just like esoteric entity has gone from an esoteric entity to an esoteric meme in a community that is of in itself esoteric. like everyone's just looking at this guy. Even his own fans are looking at this guy like, the fuck you doing? Like,
that big hammer of logic isn't all that big anymore, is it?
yeah. The thing is that what I find funny is that Batco's fan base includes the other side because
Yeah.
they are fucking hilarious.
Yeah, because Dapperton was like supportive of Batco. Then Jim Jesus came on. It was like, yeah, fucking esoteric entity. Oh, what an idiot.
If you shit post hard enough and well enough, you get like the reactionary right, like starting to believe in you, starting to root for you. Like, yeah, that's good shit. It's like I'm literally advocating for workers' control of the means of production here, guys. Like, yeah, but you said fuck the SJWs. Like, that's some good shit, mate. Like, what kind of a following have I cultivated here?
Well, you see, saying fuck SJWs is a perfectly reasonable and good thing. But the problem is we're saying fuck them for the completely opposite reason.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're saying fuck the SJWs, we agree, let's gas the Jews. No.
Yeah, it's like they hate SJWs because they are like almost Nazis. We hate the SJWs because we're like, hey, let's kill those people. Let's get the guns
I'm just
and
imagining
push your theory to the maximum praxis. Like, let's do this.
that's a
They're
good-
like,
that's a
no,
good
let's
signature
have
move,
female
actually.
CEOs.
I was just thinking that's a good signature move for my wrestling career. The maximum praxis. You ready, bud? I'm gonna give you the maximum praxis. My God! No. I was just thinking like of when Jebediah Springfield and the Shelbyville guy is like, we've come here to create a new society, and I'm just thinking like you could replace it with like he's got like a communist sticker, and then just Shelbyville's got a Nazbol sticker, and it's like, we're gonna create a new society, one that's moneyless, one that's classless, one that's stateless, and yes, and we're gonna kill the Jews. Like, what, Shelbyville? Why would we do that? I thought that's why we came here.
Amazing.
Like, we're gonna be like mere seconds away from completing the revolution. We'll almost be there. We'll almost have everyone on our side. And then all of a sudden, the Nazbols are going to start shooting the Jewish people. And we're going to be like, no, you stupid idiots. We almost had it. They're going to ruin it for us.
No,
If it's not the liberals, it's the Nazbols.
my favorite thing
The
about
Nazbol thread.
about the whole party is like, whenever I think of SJWs in any modern context, all I think about is that meme that was going on around Spider-Man and Venom all those years ago, where it says, if you're the hero long enough, you see yourself to become the villain. Like, honestly, it feels a bit like that. Like, we're going in here for justice, and then, like, just give it time. Then you just watch the liberalism creep in, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, until eventually we must create new laws to be enforced by the capitalist state to enforce the rights of trans people. Yeah, okay. Let's give the cops more power. This is good. This is a great plan.
We're going to take away the guns so that only the government has them. Oh,
No, I like this is the thing. I know this is the Left Unity chat that we were having. As I said, I'm working with an anarchist to help unionize my workplace. But whenever we have a discussion, it always boils down to the same shit. Could you guys give me 1 second? Hold up.
sure thing. I think I know what he's talking about. We were talking about it the other day, where they'll be talking. It's like, all right, we need to have this representation in this board meeting because it's about the workers' rights and whatnot, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, oh yeah, oh it's the anniversary of Kronstadt. Like, you what, mate? And then they'll just have this hour-long like argument about Kronstadt. Should they have been done that? Shouldn't they?
Well, no, you see. Well, you see, she and I get on pretty well. It's just that every time we actually talk about socialist policies, we are so completely divergent. For example, I'm what I suppose the normies would call a class reductionist. I suppose,
Whoa.
even though I suppose I could say I'm a class reductionist intersectional analyst. I don't know. Kind of hard to explain.
You're just appropriating names now.
I know, right? But it's hard to explain. I'm trying to use existing terms to explain my position, but it's like class comes first, so we can then do everything else, right? Where she comes from the opposite end, where she's like, we can only tackle the class struggle after we've each liberated each individual identity in turn, etc., right? And that's the discussion we had most recently. But the biggest one, ironically enough, was about gun control.
What?
She's an anarcho-feminist, funnily enough.
And
And
not even trying.
and so here she is, like saying, like, oh no, we can't let guns are too dangerous. They're all this. I'm like, hold on, you're an anarchist. You believe literally in the destruction of the state. How the fuck are you supposed to do that?
I apologize
yeah.
on behalf of all anarchists for gun anarchists.
I'm just like, but how?
I thought anarcho-feminism is literally feminism with guns.
That's what I thought it was
Sometimes it
too.
is.
But most of the time,
That's what it's supposed to be, though.
Most of the time, it's just rampant identity politics, and it's just
Still don't get that though.
How can you have a gun control, a pro gun control feminist? It's
How do you have a pro gun control anarchist?
that's
I don't know.
I really don't think you can.
It's the most confusing thing to me. It's like, oh yeah, I think the state should like forcefully remove guns, but I also believe in the abolition of the state. It's like, what do you think happens afterwards?
Who will have the guns then? Yeah.
yeah.
Like, the same about with feminism. Like, well, I know some feminists who support gun control, but the point is that they are really, really fucking liberal. And they call themselves feminists, and then, therefore, like, it's understandable that they would support liberal policies that are enacted in America, for example, and in other very, very liberal countries. Therefore, yes, but like anarchists, why? That's just confusing for me. To be
No, guys. You gotta like go under the radar of the government. Get yourself a Nerf blaster and a paintball tank, and just combine the two.
We're gonna crush the state with our propane-powered Nerf guns.
Oh my god! Some guy was actually trying to power his Nerf blaster with propane,
Oh my god!
and we're telling
How
him
did
like,
that
no,
end?
for the love of God, don't, because he also smokes.
okay.
Because he'd have the blaster there, and he'd be like, "Oh, I wonder if it's working." Chunk, chunk, chunk. That's cool. Just gotta have a cigarette, and there'd be
Oh,
this
no.
fireball, and we're trying to convince him to not do that. And he's still like, "Oh, I think I could get the
He's ready to take the risks. Okay, he's ready. He's put his life on the line for this Nerf game
Science.
for the perfect Nerf blaster.
The perfect Nerf blaster runs off of a 4S lipo. I'll have you know.
Madman.
Yeah.
Absolute fucking mad lad.
Like, you can power electric longboards with those.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, all right, we're going really like far away from like socialism, communism, and whatnot. But there was a guy who went to a Nerf event. I won't say the event, but he hooked up a bunch of phone batteries to try to power his flywheel blaster. And then like one of the organizers was went up to him and was like, "Oh, what you got there?" It's like, "Oh, it's this rapid strike thing, Oh, what's powering it? Because it's starting to smoke there, mate." And he opens it up. It's like, "Oh no, my phone batteries are shorting." He's like, "What?" And he pulls out this like jury rigged bodged together like with sellotape bunch of phone batteries. Like, it wasn't even soldered together. He had blue tack holding the wires onto the batteries.
Oh my god.
And he's like, and the admin's like, "You have to get rid of this now because you have made a bomb."
I was gonna say, like, maybe he should have told. Oh, who this?
Oh, it's
Oh,
Don't
what?
Trade.
Oh, it's Bobby. Hello,
You
Bobby.
guys hear me?
Greetings. Thank you for coming on. It's
Okay.
it has been a while since we've all been together, so it's great to have you on. Thank you for coming.
We're all back.
Yeah. So something about Nerf guns.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
actually,
More
Bobby,
spec-
did you catch the bit before about how I know and work with a pro gun control anarchist? It's amazing. There's the
Hold on.
silence.
Let me put the fucking stream. It's open on the other tab, and I'm hearing both of them, and the tab is playing it like 5 seconds later. It's fucking with me.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So, Barbie, as I said before, I work with a pro gun control anarchist.
Oh no.
Just let that
that just says it all. Like,
it's just like,
That's a very disappointed. Oh no.
no, but it's the same sort of thing as I got into a debate with some anthems regarding a new law that's happening in Brisbane where they're proposing that that there be a protest ban around abortion clinics, of it's like a total 300-meter protest ban around abortion clinics, and saying like so the Christian weirdo. Oh my god! Oh,
the man of
shit.
the hour is
The
here.
man is
Oh,
here.
shit.
Here he
man
is.
himself.
Here
Fuck,
he is.
You said you weren't coming, you lying piece of shit.
Well, I thought I wasn't, but plans have changed. Plans have changed.
Jesus.
Plans have indeed changed.
Hello,
Oh,
Bat.
It turns out I was playing 69th interdimensional shoots and ladders all this time. And I've bamboozled you all
Is
with
this
my flawless
podcast
skill.
part of your plan?
Well, of course. Poseidon's Pac-Man thought that I refused your offer in favor of some D&D.
But apparently no. Apparently,
apparently not.
D&D.
It's,
by the way-
Right.
yeah,
By the way,
it's good.
did you catch it?
Sorry, what?
Did you catch it? As I said, I am working with and attempting to unionize my workplace with a pro-gun control anarchist, apparently.
No, I have not, but that sounds incredibly interesting, and I think that is
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my god.
I can't roll my eyes hard enough. They're literally.
You know what?
rolling out of-
On the topic, where is the screen share? Like, well, people know. Do you remember this "Son, I am disappointed" guy?
Oh yeah. And
That's
the
what
fucking,
I felt when I've heard that. I've shared it in group chat.
Fuck! What is that fucking movie? That's like a Hercules movie or some shit. If I'm
No,
correct.
it's
Son,
just
I am
a
disappointed.
photo of very, very, very disappointed dad.
Oh,
Yeah, it's one of those old. It's it's an old meme, but it checks
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Son, I'm disappointed.
it's good to have you on, Batco, because
Ah.
we were actually just talking about that Oh well, a little while ago we were talking about that bullshit with esoteric entity. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yo, fucking bro, I left a comment on one of those videos. I don't know if you respond to that or not. Who are you gonna fucking sell the movie rights to this shit?
Oh well, I am hoping that maybe I'm really hoping that fucking I was originally going to sell them to James Gunn and making the Guardians of the Guardians of the shitposting galaxy.
Well, he recently
but
got
alas,
fired, so
he got fired, so that kind of puts my
really?
plans down.
I don't know. Actually, maybe that's freed
Um,
up his schedule. Maybe he
So
can make it.
there are a few directors who I'm considering to make this this extraordinary film. Quentin Tarantino, mostly because I just kind of want him to because I want a few N bombs in my film because Esoteric Entities does a few, so I definitely want him to say the N
As
word a
long
couple.
as Brendan Fraser plays Esso, that I'm fine with whoever it is.
Yeah. Brendan Fraser, indeed. Brendan Fraser is actually going to be is going to play Esso. That's no doubt about it. I'm also hoping that maybe Mike Myers can play Filthy Heretic. That's the other one which I want to do. Because again, because I tell you what, a lot of that stuff is going right in my cringe compilation. So who better else to play who better else to play Filthy Heretic than Mike Myers?
Did he ever try to confront you with evidence? Did he like face?
Nah.
He never tried to message you and be like, "Bro, is this true? Can you give me your side of the story?"
There was fucking Blue, but like he was just an absolute wank stand up. I did it once, but he just kept on like he's like, "Oh, dude, why are you mad?" And he kept on calling me fucking Steve Irwin. So like because like hi LMAO, I'm Australian, so like haha, you're so fucking funny. Then yeah, they there's the whole thing. They try to blackmail me about they try to frame me for blackmailing them that I was reporting to the cops, but by all means, like the drama was like again, if I had known what was going to be shown in the start of Bomber, I would have never have started this drama to begin with. But now I'm just kind of moving on. Esoteric Entities now got more bigger fish to fry. He's been accused of pedophilia again, and basically he's kind of reduced himself to the status of Operation Anarchism, which is pretty fucking low, and no one's really going to buy him.
You know that you fucked up when fucking Mr. Dapperton won't even take your side.
Yeah, that was the like I actually kind of started like how do I say it? It always kind of felt like I was entering some sort of ninth circle of hell, in the sense that I didn't really know that. But when Mr. Dapperton, launched his act of solidarity and became /our capitalist / I honestly thought I felt so bad for Esoteric Entity because I just would have loved to have gone to his house and just touch it, and just as he was watching that video, just come up behind him, slap him, and tattoo this on his forehead: "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." It just
talking about movie rights.
Yeah,
you know what? I must say that I found a studio for you. Talking about this, this what you've just explained. This calls for an animated feature film, and I have a studio for you. It's SEK Studio, also known as Scientific Education Korea, the North Korean animation studio.
Yes.
They must be the ones who will be doing that. If you don't know, people, they had an amazing movie, child flick called Squirrel and a Hedgehog, which is about a squirrel and a hedgehog basically on a tank shooting the shit out of the Yanks with all the gore and blood shown for the kids. I believe this sort of violence, this sort of level of epicness deserves to be put on this fucking shit show that you had with Esoteric Entity.
Yeah,
this is what
I was
North Koreans.
I was so surprised. When not only Mr. Dapperton took my fucking side, but members of the alt-right took my side. Michelle Caitlin was one of them. I was so fucking surprised. I would never have expected that, but she nonetheless said
well,
that
they're not pro pedophilia, they're pro hebophilia.
Yeah.
Learn the difference.
But like it was just so surreal. But like then eventually, of course, we made the fucking 2-hour video debunking the Sodom bomber. So now what I am doing, well, basically, I haven't made a fucking Black Army Choir song at all. So I'm going to try and make a Juche Gang. But what I am working on at the moment, the next video that will be coming out is the Duel of the Fates, between Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Darth Maul. Only Darth Maul is voiced by Michael Jackson.
What?
I found a video on YouTube titled "Every Single Michael Jackson Grunt,"
Oh god.
and it's just a compilation of him going da, 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 and Simona, just all compressed in a
Lovely.
3-minute 40-second video. And I just had
Darth
to.
Maul even have any dialogue in those
He
movies?
did have a few. It was
Two lines or
we
something.
reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we will
Oh,
have
yeah.
revenge. And yeah, it's like only a few lines. Ironically enough,
Did you guys fucking see? Spoiler alerts, by the way.
Yeah.
He's in the like the
Han Solo film.
Yeah, like he makes like a brief appearance at like the end or something.
I
Yeah.
didn't see the
The only
Han
problem
Solo
with that
movie.
is the only problem with that is it's by doing that they've now made Star Wars Rebels canon, and I want to punch through a fucking TV screen.
Well, it was weird. I was talking to my friends about this the other day. It was strange when I heard about that. I haven't actually seen the film because I heard it was kind of lackluster. But anyway,
Yeah, sure.
when I heard about that, I was surprised by it because I haven't seen all of them, but as far as I know, this is the first time that these new movies have basically acknowledged that the prequels exist. Like up until now, it's kind of just been like they've officially been canon, but they haven't really mentioned them.
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah,
they've been,
yeah.
like, trying to distance
the newest,
themselves from them as much as they
Yeah.
can because everyone hated
you mean
those
the
ones.
newest movies, right? The newest
Hey.
movies after the
Yeah.
the
BTW.
new trilogy. Yeah.
There is a friend of mine who would love to come on this podcast. Can I introduce him into?
Yeah,
Can I
bring
get
him
him in? Excellent.
Get him in.
Hang on a second. His name's Big Guy Liam.
Oh, big guy. Liam.
Oh, big
yeah.
Liam, get them on. Sure.
He's a real
Yeah.
big guy for you.
For us.
For us.
I'm just the only thing that about this whole drama before we put it to bed is the only thing that pisses me off is I'm disappointed that the biggest bomb dropped on Lefty Pole and Left Tube wasn't by me. That's the only thing I'm disappointed in.
Oh yeah, I'm so surprised that so many other leftists weren't involved. I was actually shared your anguish, Soccer Bar, that you weren't involved. That
How
would have
could I
been.
not be involved?
I was so disappointed. Like going, oh come on, you could like get a shit ton of these leftists right here and now, but you've left out some of the best in the business. Like, oh,
I kind of wish I was more active during it so that I could be a part of it. I wanted to be there on the front lines with you guys.
Considering that my ideology involves a species which have been accused of probing people in the butt, I'm really honestly surprised that I'm not involved.
Yeah.
like basically, meanwhile, we're being all confused. We're all being accused of pedophilia. Meanwhile, Poseidon's Pac-Man is just abducting, teenagers and that's going. Oh yeah, nothing to see here.
I'm accelerating the
What?
dialectic one asshole at a time.
Big guy Liam.
Big
Yeah,
Liam,
Liam, hello.
Hello, how's it going?
He is indeed here to join us.
Oh, yes, Batman. I don't know.
Anyway.
What a
Abortion
comeback
clinics,
streak.
I believe. We were talking about abortion clinics. That's always funny.
Yeah. Wow. Great.
Abortion clinics, always funny. Quality
Yeah.
comedian here, socialism of others. He's
Well-
here all night, folks.
if he wasn't on Esoteric's shit list, he is now. Okay. All right. So basically what I was talking about was I was having a discussion with Australian anarchist feminists about this law in Queensland about, abortion clinics having a 300-meter exclusion zone for protesting. They aren't allowed to protest within 300 meters. The only problem is, I did some research on the bill, and basically it's different because it's, a women's rights issue naturally. But sorry, there's background noise. My bad. But yeah, basically,
your dad watching TV, isn't it?
yeah, and he's
Comrade Dad.
comrade dad. But yes. So what's happening is that they're trying to push through this law, and it sets an awful precedent because it invests the police with the power to sort of set up cordons around protests, and then like evict people from them. And so I looked up and found out that there's been about like 15 different anti-protest laws proposed in like Australian parliaments, and all of them got knocked back for being anti-constitutional. And if they pass this one, it could threaten it could threaten the fact that, you know, there's environmental protests in Tasmania, which are done by our comrades down there. It could threaten them and give the police and the government pretext to shut their protests down as well.
Well, then, yeah, and with this abortion thing, that's like a liberal thing too. So people might be more like open to that.
Yeah, it's the good old bourgeoisie covering a anti-worker, anti-left thing, like system, with a liberal, progressive, in quotations, sort of bill.
This is nothing. I'm sorry to interrupt. This has nothing to do with anything. But when you started speaking, Liam, it showed your, you know, on Google Hangouts, it showed your icon on the screen, and because of that, I just noticed that Bane has a bulge in that profile thing.
It looks more like a camel
big
toe,
guy.
actually. It looks like a camel toe, actually. But if you look
Yeah,
closely,
it looks like a vagina.
Yeah,
more than a dick. Which is a thing that I 100% support.
Fair enough.
Maybe
Anyway.
Bane does have a vagina. I'm sorry. Yes, please go on.
Anyway, yeah.
If Bane has a vagina, he's valid.
But anyway, Liam, you were saying about the about basically how it appears to be progressive, but it's really just incredibly detrimental to workers and so on.
Yeah, they've done something like that recently in Melbourne, where they've passed a very progressive sort of like transport bill that makes a lot of the trams free. But when you look deeper into the bill, you see that they're taking all the money that it'll cost for this transport thing out of public housing. And no one's really looking deep into it. So everyone's like, oh, yeah, free transport. But they're not really looking at the bad stuff going on in the background.
It's ridiculous. Like, first of all, fuck Melbourne. We should just tear it down and never do it again. And
100% support this.
yeah, and any sort of like it's in Australia, like the Labor Party, especially the Victorian State Labor Party. They're not really a Labor Party. They're more of like a faux progressive party.
Tree Tories.
Yeah, they're not even good at it, like you're saying, because they're trying to be like, yes, we're for the people,
So they're
we're
like
for
the
free
fucking,
transport, but we're gonna fuck over the housing thing, so you can have free transport.
So they're like those what are they, like those woke white bitches, I believe is what they call themselves here.
Pretty much.
It's the Australian equivalent of those.
Yeah, they kind of are.
I'm still with her, and I'm going to vote for her again.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, it's like that, but less delusional, more evil, I believe.
Yeah, and they recently passed another thing that allows the cops to carry military-grade equipment to protests. They have,
Hell yeah!
Yeah.
I
they,
love militarized cops.
the cops now have flashbangs that not only do flash things, but do shrapnel, ball bearing.
Oh, fuck.
God, man.
They have air launchers that shoot, like, do you know, handball
Yeah, yeah.
balls at, fast enough to knock someone out in a single hit.
All right, guys, we're going to a protest that might turn into a riot, so we're gonna bring things that will turn it into a riot.
They've got paintball guns that shoot pepper pellets.
Oh god.
They've
Well,
got
we were talking about like high-powered Nerf guns earlier. I didn't hear all of that. That's what was being discussed.
I believe-
there, so I think it's pretty even.
Let me just load up my
What
Half-Life
city? What
work-
city
You know,
is that happening in?
like literally, like the last thing you hear before a cop just fucking unloads into you is just you see the gun click, you know, and it all goes silent. He goes, "It's Nerf or nothing," and just unloads into you.
Shit.
What
Let me see if
city
I
is
can
that
actually find
happening
a
in?
list.
Yo, Big Liam, where is this happening?
Melbourne.
Is Melbourne police listening in on our stream? That they're like, wait a second, those communists are talking about high velocity Nerf guns.
Thank God it's not like, you know, it's not fucking Britain. Else they'd be going, "Oh, mate, where's your Nerf gun license?"
Have you got a
Don't they let-
permit for all
don't they
these
let you have-
darts?
Don't they let in Britain? Don't they let people have these crazy ass knives and shit though?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but
They
the
allow,
TV
personal
requires a
protection.
fucking license, though.
Look,
Okay, sorry.
you know how many mass stabbings there have been in Britain? You know, they had to introduce a license. It was the only way.
Yeah.
Oh
shit.
God.
You can go to I've seen it here here in America in Hamburgerland. You can go to like gas stations in the middle of just fuck all nowhere, and every now and then, especially here in my area, they'll have this big case with just these huge fucking knives in it, and they cost like $10. You can just buy them over the counter along with like your fucking yoo-hoo, and no one will ask any goddamn questions.
I'm sorry, just America's the fucking worst place in the world.
America has
We
gone
have
to
guns.
shit. If
Like,
you're
we
in
have the
America,
fucking knives.
escape.
All right,
Yep.
here's
Get the
here's
hell
the
out
list
of
of their
America.
new equipment.
The Civil War has kicked off in America. Civil War 2, Electric Boogaloo. Just get the hell out of there.
It is going to be fucking weird because I tell you what, I'm going to make a huge announcement of this, lads, because it is going to impact on my video making. But in a
dear.
couple of months, I'm actually going to America for exchange there.
Oh my god,
You
Batman.
don't- Why would you
Why
do
would
that?
you do that to yourself?
Voluntarily.
Here's the thing, it was mostly for my it was for my uni stuff, but like since like stuff has been happening, I've kind of gone. Yeah, I probably should have gone to Scotland instead, to be honest. But but where I'm going is
Have
pretty.
to wake up at like 3 a.m. for our D&D.
Yeah, that's gonna. Yeah, dang it. That's too
All
bad.
right,
I
here's
think
the
we could.
actual list of the new police equipment.
Okay.
175 shot pepper ball semi-automatic rifle that fires capsicum rounds, blunt force pellets, the size of marbles or die markers to brand offenders so they can be identified and later arrested. A 40mm air launcher that fires a hard squash ball-like projectile that can hit an offender at a range of 50 meters and lands with the impact of a very hard punch. Stinger grenades that can be rolled into a crowd, explode with light and smoke while releasing 9 .32 caliber rubber pellets to waist height with a range of 5 meters. Flash noise distraction devices designed to shock and disperse violent crowds, loud enough to be able to pierce eardrums. Capsicum canisters, a crowd control weapon of last resort that detonates to release a cloud of capsicum in an event such as a prison riot, also known to kill small dogs.
On next
that's just
year's
what-
agenda,
just
we'll
what
be giving the
teachers are
police
equipped with
actual
here.
real grenades.
Oh, they already have them. That's just for
Jesus.
protests.
All right, they say last resort, but you have Phil, who's had like X amount of training. It's his first day at a protest, and protesters are screaming in his face. Do you really think he's going to have the stalwart stiff upper lip to not chuck a couple of grenades?
Oh, and they've got new armor that makes
Grenade.
them
Like they just fucking hand you all this ridiculous shit, and like you're just not gonna use it. I mean, come on, like that's just a waste of money.
Yeah.
We fucking better not use it. Jesus
He
Christ.
said the decision to display the equipment was to make the community aware that the purpose is to minimize the risk of harm at potentially dangerous
Truly makes you think.
Oh, Jesus, the cops are great.
That
No,
got the
it-
fucking head out of bed. Jesus Christ.
That
No,
got the vortex out of vortex.
Blue
No.
Lives. Is there a fucking equivalent to Blue Lives Matter over there?
Yes.
In
Yeah.
Australia, I think it is literally just another Blue Lives Matter. That's what they call themselves. It's a bit like we have a bit of a Black Lives Matter in Australia when it comes to our Indigenous population.
And they're not
But-
as liberal as Black Lives Matter in America.
Definitely not as liberal, thank God.
There
They're
was a weird like an attempt to launch like a full Blue Lives Matter thing, where I forget where it was exactly, but there was a protest and a bunch of masked people showed up, and they had a big sign that said Blue Lives Matter, and they were chanting it, but what was noticed was undeniably Blair Cottrell was amongst them. Even though the day before Blair Cottrell put out a video saying don't go there, or it's fucked, it's no bother. Yet he's right there in the front lines because it's his outline It's clearly him. You can hear his voice as well. But the weird thing was that a couple of times, you know how if you wear a scarf or something, you'll have to adjust it, occasionally, or you might take your gloves off in winter just to rub your hands. Well, there were people in the crowd like taking off their face coverings because it was getting a bit hot under the collar, and people managed to get photographs and whatnot, and they've discovered that most of the people in that crowd were Antipodean resistance.
Oh, I hate those guys so much.
Yeah.
You know what they did recently? Do you know when that girl died from being like raped and murdered in the middle of that park or that football field?
Mm.
Yeah.
They drew a massive spray painted white dick around her memorial.
Oh,
Fuck.
Owned in epic style.
Who are those people?
They're just like fash larpers that actually kill people and shit.
they're Nazis,
Fucking hell.
essentially.
They're fucking Nazis. Yeah.
Their flag is like blue with two white stripes at the top and bottom.
Oh,
so
I've
like,
seen it.
like a tricolor
I've
thing.
seen it.
And it's got that SWAT sticker in the middle. It's like the Hitler Youth one, except blue variant.
Yeah. I've seen. You posted in some of the Facebook groups pictures of like their agitation on the university grounds or something like that, and it was being ripped like by some students or comrades or something like that.
Yeah, because it happened in my hometown, wherever that
Yeah.
may be.
Mhm.
But luckily, it turns out it's that poster was posted by some old guy who
Mhm.
might actually just need some help. So thankfully, Antipodean resistance doesn't have a presence where I live, wherever that may be.
Which is good. Okay.
Yeah, as
I researched them. I went to the website and I was like, "Fucking hell, this is
Their
crazy."
website is so cringe, honestly.
Wait,
For a
Yeah.
group
I've
that
never
actually
heard of
kills
it.
people.
Alright, real shit.
Fuck.
Real shit though. If there's one thing that I have noticed with you, and I know that Liam will probably sympathize with me with this, but why is it that these fucking far right wing dickheads always talk like they're out of some fucking Dungeons and Dragons game?
Yeah.
They are so melodramatic.
But you don't seem to understand, leftist. Is that my group owns half of this realm?
Yeah.
Like,
Now I get it. I get this uncanny
White
feeling.
people,
Like, why the
North
fuck?
America.
Well, isn't just that what was that the golden one? Like he literally made a channel basically just doing that.
Actually, you're wrong.
Like literally just Skyrim farming, basically.
Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah, I know
Love,
exactly what
like,
you guys are talking about. They really are the kind of weird sort of like self-aggrandizing thing with that. It's just kind of a common thing I've noticed with authoritarians in general. Like Tankies do it too. They all have like this. They all have like no sense of perspective at all, and they're all kind of,
H Bomber Guy did a really good video on it.
Yeah.
And from my interpretation, if I understand him right, it's they create a world in which they would love to live in, basically because they're white and the world they live in is just praising white people, and then they look at the world around them where they live and it's not, and they hate it, and they try to change it and they can't. So then they say, all right, well, if I can't, walk down the street and not bump into the Jews, then there won't be any Jews in my house. And then they think, well, that's not enough. I need to create, an idea, try to make this idea reality. And then that reality becomes fantasy. And you see it kind of, I'm going to get shit for this. You kind of see it with the Golden One, where he goes around Skyrim and he'll attack like a raider and say, aha, you were part of the
Yes.
Marxists.
Yeah.
It's like, and or like a Daedra will suddenly be summoned and attack him. It's like, oh no, an SJW is attacking me.
Yeah.
I've found that with a lot of like the Skyrim community, and it annoys me because the game's great. Honestly, like, say what you want about Bethesda, but they make decent games. But almost all of the Skyrim community is like right wing, fucking anti-SJW group people. Like you see it with General Sam and Fudge Muppet. Have you been on the Fudge Muppet server? It's literal hell.
The people who go with the Stormcloaks or Caesar's Legion, unironically, you got to be a bit wary of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting thing.
Batco, I
Yeah,
think, is in
please
the
go
same
on.
group as me. You see the same sort of trend with Fallout fans as well.
Oh,
There's a page on Facebook called Fallout Rad posting, and
Oh my god, that is a hellhole.
the reactionary bullshit in there is fucking.
well,
like they're
that's a
taking
general
they're taking
game.
the anti-left like sort of ironic thing that Fallout does to show how stupid it was.
I don't often.
Mhm.
Here's the, I don't
Yeah.
often go on that page, so like I don't really know what to think about it. The only thing I do is just like the only thing I know is that like just the big iron memes.
Yeah, that's
Big
the one.
iron, big
Oh.
iron.
The big
Speaking
iron
of
memes are the
which-
best.
Speaking of which, did I tell you all about the tale of how I entered Peter Sweden's Discord?
Oh, before you do
Whoa.
that, please, before we go into Peter Sweden, because that's a very, very, very funny man, and I adore him. I'd like to talk a bit. I'd like to mention a bit fact about fantasy and Nazis.
Hmm.
Basically, I enjoy tabletop role-playing games myself. I do a lot of like DMing of Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game, second edition,
Fucking
Oh.
nerd.
and come again.
No, good because we've always kind of wanted to go into some sort of Warhammer game.
Yeah, like basically, it's extremely cool universe, and I really really like it, and it's really funny. And like when I read like Souls books for it, it's like basically it feels like as if this is the reactionaries' heaven. If you look at it from the outside, it's like yes, we are the empire of humanity. The outsiders, the chaos are going to destroy us. The foreigners kill them all. It's all that. But if you look
Praise
through the
Sigma.
Souls books. Yes, praise Sigma, God Emperor. But if you go through the book, you find you find a lot of like anti-authoritarian Jacobin kind of connotations there. Not only there was like a legitimate Jacobin revolution in Aldorf in the capital, which failed, which is now underground. It has a lot of student radicals mentions, and it's a lot of those revolutionary.
Are there fucking SJWs in Warhammer, dude?
There are like a
terrible.
lot of those
Hell,
things
space
happening
pirates.
there, but like and I really enjoy that. It's really funny because they literally satirize the authoritarian and right wingers arguments for authority. It's like, who else is going to rule us? Like are you crazy? This is insane. All the gods, the emperor, the blah blah blah. But
Let's just
Fun
wait
fact.
until the Lord's son becomes the Lord. I hear he has some good ideas about crop rotation.
yes, it has a lot of that. Well, they're showing that those guys are literally killing each other for money, and the people suffer because of that. But I was like watching. There are some YouTubers that do Warhammer Fantasy content, and I sometimes watch for example, I was playing a game in this particular part of the empire, and I wanted to learn more about the province. So I put it into YouTube, and Norland, interesting. Going to watch what's the Norland all about. And I'm watching this very cool video by this guy. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Let me have a look at what other content he has on the channel. And it's like, why biology proves that black people are inferior. 20 minutes long. And I'm like,
Jeez.
okay. And I found out that there are like about 3 people doing Warhammer content on YouTube, Warhammer Fantasy especially, and all of them are Nazis. One of them literally plays D&D with Sargon of Akkad. Arch Warhammer is the guy.
That's a fucking first sentence.
Like, it's the yes, exactly. Like, what the fuck? And then, like, all of them are unironically believing that, like, all of them unironically love this shit. Even like Golden One said that he enjoys Warhammer Fantasy. Like, he loves the universe, and he literally like
That's horrifying.
loves the shit out of it and puts it into reality. And it's like so funny that I really really when I have more free time, when I have more time on my hand, I want to make like a channel about like apolitical, but like about role-playing games, about Warhammer Fantasy, and from the GMing standpoint, and do some content on that. Because like there are so many fucking Nazis there, and I'd love to be the
Why
first openly
Warhammer
communist
is a
Every like
dude there.
group, everything that I love is just ruined by Nazis.
Pretty much.
Yeah, like what the fuck,
Yeah,
Nazis? Let me play my game.
Even
Yeah, man. I've just fucking loved like just murdering Jewish people before, and then they had to come and just fucking ruin it.
appropriating my
it's just
killing culture.
you know the universe is absolutely fucked when the gaming community sort of all rallies behind the anti-SJW culture and decries Wolfenstein, a game literally about killing
Killing
Nazis.
Nazis.
Like
Yeah,
it's
this is so bad. And if you look at some of those guys, like this is what I've understood when I became like a leftist. A lot of the guys that I used to watch before I was a communist, they express so much anti-capitalist like ideas. They all rant about the profit in games and how profit ruins games, how it is art. It's not a commodity. It's not like DLCs are bad because like just let us have the game and enjoy it for what it is. Like a lot of anti-commodification of games, a lot of anti-profit ideas.
So
Like,
you're telling me gamers
culturally-
are Nazbol?
No, like gamers are comrades to be. Like I remember even like Zero Books did a video about that. Like the gamers should embrace leftism because you all
what I've
rally.
told-
Like we
from what I've-
support you.
From what I've been told, being being a game developer is actually like a really just terrible job. Like they make you work ridiculous hours for
Mm.
that rate of pay.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's the same. Yeah, being anywhere in the games industry is fucking terrible, apart from owning the companies. Like recently, very recently, voice actors had to start a union in America so they could fucking
Yes.
get breaks.
I heard about that.
They
Yeah.
need that.
That's
They
fine.
need a fucking union. Actually, there was another thing, and it's actually an idea that I had that I expressed in the recent episode that wasn't yet posted of Cultural Marxist miniseries. That capitalism tries to emulate horizontal management, like doesn't really give it. Like they try to emulate equality and try to emulate what socialists are promoting. Good example is Valve's this bossless environment. Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Like,
heard
Valve
about that.
doesn't
Their
have
like flat
bosses.
horizontal thing isn't giving us episode 3 of Half-Life. God damn it.
Yeah, but like the point is, I in the episode criticized that and said that they are trying to make Valve a cooperative without changing the ownership model. Gabe
just-
Newell and the dudes are still owners, and if they want to fire someone, they can.
I've
If
got-
they want to decrease the funding for a project that maybe developers want to do, they can, and stuff like that. Basically, workers don't really manage it, but it looks like as if they do. And so basically, and I have seen on one of the Russian gaming /culture websites an article about an employee of Valve that said that this model that they're using, which seems like a very cool idea, like it's very horizontal, you don't have a boss, you decide what project you want to do, freedom, like stuff like that, is really, really fake. He says that it's literally done to get the developers, to hire more developers to look cooler in the eyes of a potential worker. But when you're there, actually, there are people, like, you are literally under a far more authoritarian rule. It's like what Zizek said about Postmodern Dad. Postmodern Dad is far more authoritarian than a classic, totalitarian father.
This
Because-
just makes me think about a King of the Hill shitpost I saw once. And it's Hank saying, I'll change it for this. It's Hank saying, you're not making socialism any better. You're just making capitalism worse.
Exactly. And those guys are, he said that it's a lot of bullying, a lot of oppression, and it's very, very totalitarian. And he left the company because of that. He left Valve, which is one of the highest paid, like, fucking developer jobs and most prestigious ones. So I think, like, it's a lot of this emulation of horizontal systems that capitalism is going through. And it's going to fail eventually.
He's a socialist, after all.
Yes, he is. He's an anarchist or something, isn't he?
He said he was like a utopian anarchist or something. I'm not.
Yeah,
Karl
he said that he's a
Karl
utopian
Marx was a
anarchist.
capitalist. He wrote a book about it.
He wrote a fucking book, bro.
Capital was actually about how good capitalism was.
It was literally the best book ever. I mean, it's up there.
Yeah,
It's up,
but, like,
up
I'm
there
going
with
to
Adam
do a
Smith,
lot
man.
of. I'm going to do a lot of some content on that. Maybe a separate episode about this emulation of horizontal systems in capitalism, because like
Horizontalism. Yep.
it literally like doesn't even like they say that like cooperation is far more productive than like strict hierarchies, right? This is why they try to emulate that, but there are some points where it doesn't make sense, like open offices. Does anyone of you work in an open office?
No.
Where you
Nope.
I do.
Hard and work,
basically-
wage cocks.
I love
Got
that.
him.
But the point is that there are those so-called open space offices, and the point is that there are no separate rooms. It's just one big ass room. You have your table and your computer or laptop.
Sounds
Occasionally, they introduce like the tables on wheels so that you can move tables together with other people, move it around, stuff like that. Well, scientifically, it is proven that in such an office, the productivity falls because you don't feel comfortable having people like everywhere around you.
Jesus.
An individual room or small room with like 5 people is far better for the tasks of like, for example, programming development that a lot of IT companies try to do that. Well, nonetheless, those offices are fucking everywhere, especially in like tech jobs, despite the fact that it is proven that productivity falls. Why the fuck would capitalism do that?
Jesus.
Hire more people.
My
remember-
argument
Um,
is that they are doing it because it is far because it emulates the horizontal system. It's not only like hiring more people is one point, but I'm pretty sure they have enough space. If we talk about big companies,
sorry to cut you off. I
Yeah.
gotta take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
When I come
No,
back.
fine. No one likes you anyway.
Oh, jeez. Fine.
no, don't say
Listen.
mean words to TK.
I really want to hear Batco's invasion of that person's
It's fine.
server, though.
Well, I'll talk
Yeah.
more about.
Good story.
I've got a few more. I'll give a few thoughts about the whole gaming stuff, and when you come back, then I'll tell you all about the towel.
All right.
Yeah,
I think
I'll
it's
be
what
right
I think it's
back.
what I think it's what really does tick me off about like a lot of gaming culture and so on, is that I do find that there's a whole degree of like hypocrisy when it comes to the whole gaming kind of debate. They say artists should be able to express themselves and how they want, but the second anyone might do, they might have a black main lead, or they might have a or just any
White genocide.
yeah, they'll start
Literally
screaming
the
white
same
genocide,
thing as
and they'll start
genocide.
getting triggered. And the thing is that what really does get my goat is that these are the same people who will say, microtransactions are shit. These games are overpriced. Maybe there ought to be producers are getting way too involved in games and it's not allowing artists to express themselves. These are the same cunts, the same people who will start, screaming Pinochet at you the second you start. Or hey, maybe capitalism, if it was abolished, might actually help, games, be better. Might help games, have more artistic license and more artistic freedom. There's this one thing which really, and one of the things which really does get my goat about this is, have you ever heard of Visceral Games?
Yeah.
Visceral Games.
I heard the name.
Okay, well, Visceral Games was responsible for 2 games which, in my opinion, had fantastic art directions: Dante's Inferno and the Dead Space series.
Dead Space.
Okay.
Dead Space. Now, if you guys don't know what Dead Space was, it was a huge survival horror sci-fi franchise that was around the late
2008 to around
2008, yeah.
2013. if I
around
remember
2013.
correctly.
Yes, basically, hit it on the head right there. And basically, what happened is that due to constant interfering and due to just shitty management on their part, EA wound up, in a sense, being responsible for the fall of Visceral Games. And what is really sad about it is that Visceral Games, to their credit, always created these visually appeasing and conceptually rich, forms of, art, beautiful like video games.
They did
I love
a lot
the-
of the modern James Bond games too, like the
yeah.
PS2, PS3 era.
The thing is, yeah, but like when it comes to like, but when I look at like, when I look at games like Dante's Inferno and whatnot, I go, like, dude, the amount of like, research that they did into the Divine Comedy and all these pagan stuff and like, all these artistic references that they grew from it. I am never going to see a sequel to this game, which to its merit looked pretty fun to play. And it was generally, received well by critics. But I was looking into like some of the art direction that was taken today because I love like looking at all that fantasy art and so on, and I was just my heart just sank knowing that we're probably never going to get a game which had as much artistic creativity that Visceral Games was able to achieve like that. And it's from that really kind of it really just fucking makes me shake my fist because it really just. It shows that no, capitalism is not a great method for artistic expression. It's not a great tool for allowing games to be flourished. And in the sense, when people start experimenting with the art medium, then of course there's this whole sort of reactionary backlash. And I kind of think that in a way, a lot of these journalists kind of perpetuate it in order to kind of sell the game even more through kind of guilt tripping or saying like, oh no, this is going to be bad, this is going to be good, and so on and so forth. It really is this sort of warped, twisted sort of thing. And people who say like, oh, I'm doing it on behalf of like ethics and gaming journalism, you don't fucking stand for shit. If you really gave a fucking shit about gaming journalism at all, you wouldn't be fucking linking me articles to Breitbart that cover this shit, spare me.
The problem is that capitalism is like, I agree with you completely, and I have this argument, like, not only if we put away the moralist, this moralist side to, wow, capitalism destroyed my favorite game, right? Which is completely reasonable. But if you think about it from a technical standpoint, like from materialist standpoint, it's literally like capitalism is bad at managing video games. It's really bad because there are two things about there are two sides.
The downfall of Visceral was that EA forced them to work on Battlefield Hardline. The Visceral started making a cops versus crooks game, and it was going to be this really cool story about a cop who turns into a vigilante because the system turns against him and all this. And the single player for Battlefield Hardline was great. I love the story. But EA forced them to turn it into a Battlefield game, and when Hardline didn't get the critical reception that EA wanted, they stopped using Visceral for future projects. And that caused the company to shut down.
Yeah,
but like
100%. If you think about game as it is and capitalism, this is like the argument. This is actually really tragic, and there are so many stories, and EA is involved in too many of them. Fucking hell! Like, and the dude, the CEO of EA, look him up right now. He looks like a fucking villain from a fucking comic book. Look him up. He is a villain that kills games and kills gaming companies.
That checks out.
Yeah,
he does.
So basically, if you think about what video game is, it is art. First of all, it is a piece of art, a piece of entertainment, which is like visual entertainment, interactive entertainment. And second of all, it is code. Capitalism tries to commodify everything it produces. It produces commodities to sell them, right? The point is that how hard it is to commodify art. It is impossible to commodify art. It is literally fucking impossible. And I recommend Eric Taxon's video on art and capitalism as a reference. It is a very, very good research into why capitalism mismanages art and why art ultimately is impossible to put into a capitalist system. And it is not only it is art, it is also code, programming code. Programming code could be copy-pasted. And you could copy-paste the whole shit and have two products by C Ctrl V.
Exactly.
It is impossible to commodify something that is a perfect commodity that doesn't need production after it was produced first time. You don't need.
Exactly what they did with it. The original creators of Doom said, "Oh fuck this! We just realized we made a game that anyone could copy paste. So let's just make it shareware and everyone will be happy." And everyone was happy.
Everyone was happy. Like, that's the point. It is literally impossible. Like, it is possible to some extent if you try to control that, if you try to introduce DRM, if you try to outlaw piracy and take down every single person who posts your game online. Yes. Also, there is another thing that they're trying to develop called game as service, where you never buy a copy of a game, you don't own it, but what you have is you have a PC, right? You have your PC and you rent a game, and you basically use streaming service to hook up to a server where the game is situated, and you play
How
it
many
there.
times
So
have
you
they
never
tried
technically
that? And it's
Oh my-
failed every time.
Every time.
like.
It's
The point is that it is actually succeeding. We already have, like, for example, Diablo 3, where half of the game assets are on the fucking server. And when the game dies, when they say, okay, Diablo 3 doesn't give us enough money anymore, let's stop supporting the servers for the game, you don't own the game anymore.
Basically, like
And you
an
sign
MMO.
Yeah, like an MMO. And the point is that there is another person who is looking into it a lot from the gaming community, who is really, really anti all of this bullshit. Who is Ross? His YouTube channel is Accused Farms. He is famous for his Machinima series, Freeman's Mind, and he said he's working with some attorneys and that to figure out, is it even constitutional to do that, because you technically bought a thing and you should own it. Like, if you buy a thing, you must own the thing.
I
and-
think in Australia that's a real under consumer law. If I pay for something outright, it's $100, and I pay $100. It's mine, and I can do whatever I want with it. I think we have that.
They did that, yeah. But
But the point is that what happens
You
if
get
you play?
away
Do they sell Diablo 3 in Australia?
yeah, they do.
I mean, I bought it on I bought it
happens-
on my PlayStation 3, and I played
The
it.
issue is the way to get
Oh.
around that law is the companies just don't host any of those servers in Australia, and they sell US copies of the game in Australia.
Which
I know
don't
that
fall under the
Australia
consumer law?
has, I know that, like, the Australian, like, gaming, what is it called? Like, gaming rating system, they get pretty pissy about, like,
Yeah.
violence
Like,
and stuff.
the point is that
They'll
here,
ban it for nothing.
what happens?
Yes, I
that,
think.
like, if you sell an American company in Australia, does it not fall under the jurisdiction of the consumer laws of Australia?
I think it's a big, like, fuck you kind of thing, where it's like, oh, you've bought this disc, it's yours. Absolutely, 100%. You could do whatever you want with it, but if you try to play online, you have to play with the service provided. Oh, looks like the only servers are the ones in the US. Good luck connecting.
It's exactly why MMOs don't have. They took all their servers out of Oceania recently. Have you noticed? Has anyone noticed that? That
No.
people
The
like
reason you guys can't connect is because you're foreigners and Trump doesn't want you
people
coming.
like World of Warcraft, Star Wars: The Old Republic, DC Universe Online, Rift. They pulled all their servers out of Oceania and made them US and EU, and they said they were doing it because they couldn't afford to run the servers. But if you have a look at the profit they've been making, they absolutely can. It's because the Australian legal system is catching up with the times.
Oh,
So,
damn.
Hey, maybe this is unconstitutional, and so all the companies are like, fuck, we better pull out now before we get a massive lawsuit.
Yeah, actually, that's the point. Like, that's what I'm saying. The whole system cannot function ultimately. It's going to fail. The games, like, if we remove every single other aspect, the video games cannot be run, like, you cannot run them under a capital system effectively for too long. It's going to fall apart because
It's
you
a
have
bubble.
all those Australian law is going to catch up. Yes, it's a legal bubble more than anything else, because it's really contradictory. It doesn't make fucking sense that you buy a thing and then you don't own it. And it is art and code. Like, it's all those things cannot be commodified effectively. And all the projects that are coming up are either going to destroy gaming as we know it, like, for example, this streaming thing. There is a workable prototype for gaming as service system.
76. They're doing it too.
The point is that we have internet and streaming are improving more and more. Why streaming is such a big deal now? Because there is a lot of investment in there. There is a lot of money rolling around there. That's why everybody's streaming. That's why streaming services are so big, especially gaming streaming. And the next step for that is to put games into streaming. and run that. And there are a lot of experiments that are proving that it is actually possible theoretically to have not to sell games anymore, but to rent them out. Therefore, you don't own anything, and they can
EA
pull
Access.
any shenanigans that they wish. EA is going to be one of the first ones to do
No,
that.
they've already done it. So it's
They've already done it.
Yep, EA Access. It's
They've
called
already
EA
done it.
Access.
EA Access, yeah.
You sign up for it every month, and
Yeah.
you basically download the games to your console, PC, whatever. You can play the game, but if you stop paying your EA Access, you can no longer play the game.
Yeah,
God.
but add to that the part
Well,
where
it's
you don't even
Ancapistan.
get the code, where you don't even get the product, you don't even download anything.
Oh, they've tried that too with FIFA, but it didn't work because the streaming was shit.
Yeah, and it's improving year by year, month by month. Streaming is going to be better and better. Internet is going to be better and better, and that will be the end of gaming as we know it.
This constant
Australia will
need
be
to
fucked
try to
then.
make a profit off of it, though, I think will eventually kill it, because we may get faster and faster internet, and it may be like you'll be able to connect to that FIFA game and have no lag, no dropouts, no nothing. But
Right.
having to pay like $5 a week to play it, a lot of people are going to go, I'm going to pirate it. Lots of people are going to do that.
That's the point, but like maybe you want to pirate it, but when the code is not leaving the secure service of EA, let's say, to hack a game, to pirate it, you will need, like, for example, now a fucking school kid buys a game, right? He gets his fucking game, he gets the code, he inserts the DRM crack, which removes the server connection checker that checks whether the game is online or not to prove the authenticity. If you ever pirated a game, you may have seen a crack folder which has like 3 files, which is like Steam API.ini, for example, which creates the block for Steam. You put it in the folder of the game, and when the game tries to check whether it is online, it is on Steam, the file sends a false positive response, so you can play the game. It's really easy to crack games this way, and there are tons and tons of cracks online. And technically, if you buy a game and pull out a crack from the internet and post it there to secure your game, it's not even piracy. The point here is that when your game, when the code is situated in a secure server of EA in Los Angeles, you will need a team of hackers to fucking go hard on the fucking, like, go in, guns blazing, you know?
Pentagon level
Go
shit.
through all the security and do a fucking hacking operation on the level of fucking,
Fuck, we're gonna call Blue.
It's gonna turn into like a Deus Ex cyberpunk thing.
Yes, like you will need fucking lone
subterfuge going through,
gunmen.
like
You will need a team
air
of lone
duct
gunmen from
things.
fucking X-Files to fucking get the code even.
Puts his glasses on. I'm in. And
Yes.
finally, we can access Battlefield 1776.
Yes, like what the fuck? It will be so harder. The piracy will be ended. This is why they're developing that. This is why they're trying to experiment with streaming, because it is the way to destroy piracy. It is a way to kill games permanently when they're not profitable anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything to stop it. I mean, has anyone else here paid for a subscription game before?
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
I subscribed to a game called Aces High, which is still going, surprisingly. Don't know how.
Is it the digging one?
No, Aces High is a combat flight simulator.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I've heard of it. It's got a big community.
It used to have one. It's down to like 200 members now. almost.
Jesus.
Damn.
But the servers are still up.
Still alive?
It's still alive. It's still played. But like you get like peak hour. Peak hour used to be. Well, let me think about it. Peak hour used to be like 300 people per server, and there were 2 servers. And then on Tuesday, they would hold an event called Titanic Tuesday, and they would merge the 2 servers.
Cool.
Nowadays, you get 150 to 200 people on the weekend, and 100 people during the week at peak hour, and off peak hours as low as 3 or 4 people.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm subscribed to Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's one of my guilty pleasures. I still play that game. I do still play that game, and people still play the shit out of it. They're still releasing expansions and patches for it to this day.
Yeah, like, but at the same time, it's what you're talking about is a rare thing, a very rare thing. Ultimately, we're going to hit the time when the most of the games will be run on the service, and when all the money that you have paid on it invested into microtransaction, into in-game items, hats and shit. When they decide to pull out, they will, even the single-player games.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that was the
And
thing.
this is one of the reasons. This is one of the actually for the people. This is one of the arguments you have in arguments against like the reactionary gamers. You should talk to them about games and how the capitalism is fucking killing it, and how we must protect their rights to
I
own
just
games.
don't understand how somebody can look at the fucking paid mods controversies and think, yeah, like there needs to be more shit like this. I mean,
Yeah, nobody does that except for greedy fucking corporate owners.
And
What was the paid mods controversy again?
Skyrim.
Bethesda, along with Valve, tried to release a paid mods thing on Steam. Massive backlash, so they just did it on Xbox and PlayStation.
The
So,
Creation Club.
so
Creation
I
mod.
as a player would have to pay to get a mod.
No, that apparently the system quotes that they put in is Xbox can get any mods they want as long as they're uploaded to the Bethesda's website. But if you want high quality Bethesda level mods, you can pay for them with special Creation Club bucks.
Okay.
And
Which
it's like
means you could buy a Gauss
that what they're
gun for
actually
Fallout
called?
4 for $5. That's what it means.
you can buy a backpack for $5 currently. On the,
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. So it's complete bullshit, but at least it's not at the level of what they have promised originally.
Capitalism
So-
is killing the gaming industry.
Gamer gang,
Why can't
Unite,
the
roll
Gamergate
out.
be about
gamer
that?
gang. Where is the gamer gang when we need them? The
But
gamers,
The worst
Games
part
are-
about it is the trend
gamer
you see.
red gods.
Is the trend you see is because it's also. I hate to be one of those contrarian leftists that you always see on the edge posting, but it's like because of the reactionary nature of gamers, it then goes on to the flip side of now that being a gamer is sort of almost a pariah thing in leftist circles. So
Gamers
now,
rise up.
so now if you're gamers rise up, exactly. So if you're a gamer you're more likely to be right wing, but now because gamers are more likely to be right wing, leftists now attack gamers.
Hello,
pushing
my
them away
fellow
from our
comrade.
movement.
I was just busy playing some video games. You play video games? Get out of here, you goddamn reactionary! No, I'm Marxist-Leninist. I'm a Marxist-Leninist.
Everyone plays video games. It's just calling
Anyway.
yourself a gamer.
Anyway, so like I was so anyway, so I guess
Sweden.
that means that now we have to talk about Peter Sweden. So
100%.
literally,
It is
Peter Sweden.
gave
out-
invasion of
it
this
was an
server, or was it like a
it was somewhat- it was a-
subterfuge?
It was a slight invasion, though we didn't get to meet the man himself. But nonetheless, the impact was made. So anyway, what happened is that Peter Sweden put the link out to his Discord in a public space. So he had no mods to do one of those arrival things. So you could literally just go in there and go like, "Oh, hey, here I am." So basically, a group of leftists said like, "Dude, we're doing this fucking, we're just shit posting on Peter Sweden's Discord, and like hardly anyone can stop us." I'm still there, by the way. I'm still on his Discord, so like they haven't gotten rid of us at all. Anyway, so we did that. So what happened is that basically, we went in, we started shit posting. Some of the guys like started going, "Oh, you guys aren't really communists. You're just communist sympathizers," because we haven't conducted a communist revolution yet, or something like that, which makes no sense. But what happened eventually is that we all started singing "Big Iron" in the voice chat. Big iron on his hip, just constantly just singing it.
Big iron.
Big iron.
Big
Oh my god.
That's how I win just every argument.
Yeah.
That's actually just how I conduct every conversation in general with another human being.
If Big Bag John isn't on the Fallout 76 soundtrack, I'm going to be pissed.
I have to say though, I listened to Country Roads,
The
just
new
on its
version
own.
that Bethesda released, it's actually good.
Oh
It is
yeah,
a
I
No,
love
it's
it.
very good. Yeah.
I'm actually like I was tossing up whether or not if I liked Big Iron or West Virginia more, and I'm like, oh no, I'm a West Virginia lad. It's almost heaven.
I have to agree.
Blue Ridge Mountains. Oh no, what have I become?
Oh, by the way, guys, did you see that Cuba, in the same press release, said that they're approving gay marriage but dropping the term communist from their constitution?
Wait, what?
Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
yeah. They're introducing
God.
private property and shit. Yeah, that's like exactly
No,
what
but
everybody.
like they literally said
Oh,
we're no longer a communist state. They said it, like the government said it.
Yeah, I heard about that. I
Is
predicted that. I made a tweet about that. Like when I was on the show a few months ago, Eugene, I said,
Mhm.
yeah, Cuba's gonna become Dengus sometime soon. Sure enough.
God damn it.
Can't wait for all those Cuban dangists to like come on Twitter and spam that shit.
I think
Dengus.
Cuban Dengists is the same as normal Dengists, but
They'll be
No,
slightly different.
No, they're Dengist with actual fashion sense instead of the grey pantsuit apparatus.
I
Oh,
think
let's hope that they will go a bit like. I really, really hope that Cuba goes into more like Chavista kind of style regime. Like, I hope they will try to go this route. I hope they'll try to do the socialism of 21st century. Because by dropping the word communist, that could mean two things. Either they're going full-on, head-on capitalist, right? Or they're going, or they're saying that the word communism equals Marxism, Leninism, word socialism equals democratic socialism, social democracy.
I think
And
the
they
fact
go
that they
into
recognized
socialism.
private property is pretty conclusive evidence that they're going to just go full capitalist.
did they
Well,
define
not
private
necessarily.
property?
They already had private property, already had private industries in there for a very
Yeah,
long
but only
time.
to a degree.
During the time.
This is essentially like a declaration of we're going to ramp
they
this up.
redefined what communism means and removed it from the constitution.
Fact.
Huge off.
Well, we'll see what is going to happen. I really hope. Like, the point is that they need Chavista government, not neoliberal government. If they have neoliberals, they're going to create fucking Haiti out of the place.
Oh god.
You're
It's
right.
going to be fucked. Like, they do need, and you know what? If we look at the ex-Soviet Union countries and what population demanded when the Soviet Union was falling apart, is that they demanded retaining the workers' benefits and rights that existed during Soviet era. So you had a mass support for healthcare, workers' rights, representation, etc., etc., like social reforms, and people really fucking liked it, and they wanted to retain that. Therefore, I would suspect that the Cuban people would support all of those things as well. They would support retaining the gains of the revolution, and
Then-
everybody likes like the
If they-
revolution, and everybody supports it. The point is that if they go private property, the mass movement would support that, and if the Communist Party would listen to them, and because they usually do listen to them, all the people shouting at them.
If they allow
yeah.
if they allow the kind of private property I'm thinking of, which is private ownership of the means of production, making a profit, that kind of thing. If they allow that,
They already have that.
Yeah, well, look at it. It's degrading whatever work they put in to create this the benefits for the workers. It's first undermining it and then corrupting it in order for this small yet growing private property area to create a profit.
The National Assembly also decided to eliminate the term communism from the new constitution. It does not mean that we renounce our ideas, but in our vision we think of a socialist, sovereign, independent, prosperous and sustainable country.
I call
Esteban
bullshit.
Lazo. Today's notion of what constitutes communism has changed since the current constitution was signed in effect in 1976. The preliminary draft reaffirms the socialist character of Cuba's political, economic, and social systems, as well as the role of the Communist Party of Cuba as well as the role of the Communist Party of Cuba as the leading force governing society and the state.
If they're actually trying to create socialism, then why are they allowing this private property and business and capitalism to exist within Cuba?
Because I think one of the pushes is because Trump has reaffirmed or backed up the blockades on Cuba again. And I think what Cuba's trying to do is move more away from the word communism as a buzzword, so they can begin trading with the rest of the world again. That's my theory anyway. And I think that's what North Korea should do, in my opinion, if they want to be Marxist, Leninist, whatever, is they should move away from calling themselves a communist or Juche state. And if they want to go to trade again, be more like China. And
so it's basically, well, not basically, but in a more layman's terms, it's Cuba saying, hey guys, look, we're totally like capitalistic.
I think it's something like that.
Not a problem, guys. You can trade with us. Immediately turns to the worker cooperatives and says, I did it, lads. We can trade with the world again. And all the workers of the local Soviets are going, cheers, lad. Well done. And
Well,
then
yes
UN
and no.
inspectors come in. And
I still believe it's more of a shift towards like basically South American radical social democracy kind of system. First, second of all, it is accepting the fact that Cuba had private property all along, and they are not creating a world communist, like full-on automatic luxury space communism anymore, because they are not, because there is no Soviet Union anymore. And we must accept the fact that Soviet Union was a vanguard of the global revolution, anti-capitalist revolution, because they had resources, they had funding, and they had some, legs to stand on in terms of international support, while Cuba doesn't. And no state anymore has that. Cuba alone is not going to perpetuate the revolution. The fucking Cuban Red Guards are not landing in fucking China to liberate Chinese workers anytime soon.
Yeah.
So therefore,
think-
accepting the fact that they're not doing it is good.
A lot of Cuban... Oh, sorry. Go for it.
I think most reasonable people kind of knew that Cuba, becoming basically capitalist was kind of inevitable at this rate, really.
Yeah, I agree. They were under so much pressure from NATO and the UN and all these other outside forces that's just saying, okay, we're not communists anymore. Fucking leave us alone. Let us do what we want. Is kind of the best choice.
The only sort of real, I guess, kind of lasting appeal of the Leninist states has been the sort of development in the developments of productive forces in these shitty countries like China and whatnot. Those regimes kind of building up their infrastructure and whatnot. It was the only kind of, I guess, sort of lasting effect of those systems of socialism that still
Social
exist
gains,
today.
dude. Social gains.
Yeah, social gain, and of course, like that obviously is just kind of paving the way for modern capitalism in many ways. So of course, Cuba is eventually gonna just accept that in some degree or another, eventually, with no wider worldwide movement to latch onto anymore.
Well, I think it's a matter of survival, I guess. I mean, it all depends. Like the huge debate now is whether Xi Jinping is actually just doing the NEP shit, or if he's like actually going full return of capitalism to China and abandoning all pretenses. That's the big.
It's absolutely the second thing.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, they haven't been socialist. Fuck it. Ever since Xi Jinping came along, Deng Xiaoping, it's been, it's kind of just gone downwards. You can make the argument that it also happened under Mao, but this one really fucking cements it.
Yeah, well,
the liberal reforms post Mao that's it basically, because if you look at Maoism and you see what they basically Maoism appeared after Stalin, and they wanted to learn on the Stalin's mistakes, and they wanted to introduce, they changed the ideology a lot to accommodate for revisionism and the destruction of revolutionary potential of the proletariat. And the Cultural Revolution itself was the idea of let's have the masses of people rebel against A, capitalism, B, whatever the fuck they want, and C, the Communist Party itself. Let's have that.
Look, I
let's
just want
have.
to point this out. I don't know if this is a comparison between like Mao and Deng and China or whatever, but as soon as the last Castro died, Raul, all these reforms started to be put in place. And I don't know if he was just
Raul is alive.
being stubborn. But
Sorry, Raul is alive.
When he stopped being president, sorry.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was just being stubborn or trying to be a vanguard of
Well,
Marxism in Cuba.
at the same time, if you look at the times of Raul and you look at the private property, and if you look at the trends of how much of the industry was in the control of private property, it has been increasing under Raul tremendously. It's not like this whole fucking let's accept private property came out of nowhere. Raul himself approved a lot of that, because it was deteriorating under him for all that years, all those years. We can't really talk about any legitimate. To be honest, we can't talk about any legitimate sustainability of any anti-capitalist states post 1991. I don't believe so. All of them depended too much on the support by Soviet Union. The same thing about North Korea. North Korea had its economic crisis in 1991. It still hasn't reached the same levels of GDP and production to this day. While they're speeding it up, obviously they're still not reaching that level. That's why all the poverty appeared there, and why it was fucking hellhole throughout the years. And I believe it is speeding up. It's going to improve, but nonetheless, they will have to accept the private property. They will have to get the hamburgers in, and they already have.
Mickey Days on North Korean soil.
Therefore, I must say that the best case scenario that we have is South America resisting imperialism by any means that they have, whether with or without private property. I more and more am attracted and understand what the Chavista and the social 21st century is all about, and I can understand why it works and why it should be still working. That's our best chance at retaining, let the global South resist the neoliberalism. And why they're resisting, destroy neoliberalism in the North, because it will destroy eventually any revolution. It will crush any resistance. Come again?
The heart of the beast sort of thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the way every single state will lead to. This is what will happen. And I must say how the social 21st century, which is a bit more democratic, direct democracy elements, hardline social democracy,
libertarian type.
Yeah, libertarian type. Yeah, and a lot that is edging on Marxism has been really, really successful in South America, and it has done a lot of gains. And the only times when it starts to fail is when America stops. It starts to collapse on it. Not actually, no. In terms of ideology, in terms of popular support, not really. It starts to collapse on itself when America gets involved and starts sending funding to the rebels and starts to destabilize the states. This is when it starts to fall apart.
Considering the way America's going, it might get to a point where there's too much internal strife in the US that the US can't actually topple regimes anywhere in the world.
It's so far apart, in my opinion.
Oh, it's getting close. I mean, we're at a point in America where people are trying to get away with attacking in any way the opposing side without pissing off the government too much. Because
I really don't know, because all this internal strife of liberal liberal bourgeois.
It's all superficial.
States.
I agree.
It has been there all the time. It's so fake. Like when it comes down
Here's
to
the
whether
thing
we
about
kill
the
the
whole.
people that live. Excuse me. Let me quickly finish the point.
Yeah, sure.
When it comes down to invading a state and killing everyone who stands in your way and getting their oil, every single political force in America is in unison shouting yes, 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 and this is exactly what keeps them together. Like imperialism is what unites the left and the right in America in unison. Because that
Well,
means more money. That means like military-industrial complex being really happy, clapping its hands, and
So
like
it's
the oil.
America. It's America pushing its imperialism across the world. That's giving it its own stability.
Well, pretty
Yeah,
much. I mean,
that's
considering
my
the fact that
argument.
a majority of. Oh, sorry, I'm yawning here. My apologies. But considering the fact that a majority of American resources are based off, are based off foreign resources, then yeah, of course, no shit that they that they expand because they can't heck, being self-sufficient. What kind of nation would we be? That'd make us almost, dare I say, socialist.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's why the self-sufficiency as the ideology of the global south is the key, because self-sufficiency as an idea, the logical conclusion of it will be the international socialism, nothing else.
Yeah.
No capitalism, no private property. When it comes down to a choice between whether we go hard, like if you take, for example, a state like Venezuela or other, what's Evo Morales president of?
Bolivia.
Bolivia. Let's take Bolivia, for example. When it comes down to Bolivia making a choice whether we, like you already said, Bobby, that the social in the 21st century is the kind of ideology that starts to crumble on itself, right? And I agree. Like any social democracy, it is going to fail eventually. It is going to fall apart. The question is when the population of, let's say, Bolivia will start to, like, the system will start to shake. They will be really afraid. It will be really, really fucking scary. They will have to make a choice. Do we abandon all the things that we did to get our healthcare, get our anti-poverty acts, get all of that, just get rid of the system that got us out of tremendous poverty and gave us some social and economic gains, and accept America's capital and World Bank and all of that shit? Or we band
Sorry to cut you
together
off,
with our
Eugene,
fellow
but I actually got to
comrades.
run. Been great talking
Oh.
with you guys.
Yeah, same. Come
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank you for coming on.
All right, yeah.
Really happy to meet
Yeah,
See you
see
later.
you, dude.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah, I'll see you guys later. Actually, I got a 20 to do too. So thank you
Okay,
for
but
having me on.
All good.
Alrighty, see you back.
Coming
See you
on.
back.
Good to
yeah,
see
bye bye. So
Alrighty.
the choice is whether they get rid of all of that or band together with fellow comrades from other states and start pushing self-sufficiency to its logical conclusion, which is socialism. Like, there are
Yeah.
no other ways. I believe this is the only viable strategy for politics in the global south. Self-sufficiency to the max.
Well, the United States, in its policy, like I was just thinking about your argument about American imperialism, both financial and military, and it's just sort of like, coming to think of it, besides the New Deal interwar period, besides that period, and more the isolationist period just before World War One, besides those two periods of time, the United States has never ever had an antagonist, and even then, you could say that in those periods, the Native Americans in the late World War One period, as well as the Mexicans and God knows who else. Like, basically, the United States has never had a period where the government or the capitalist interests in the US haven't had a boogeyman, ever. The United States have
Yeah.
never not had a boogeyman. And like, not wanting to be all like jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams on you, but it's just the moment the Soviet Union collapses, like, give it 7 years, bang, there's another great enemy. Why? It can only, capital, especially fascistic style capital, which you see in the US on a greater level, can only exist if there's an antagonist force perpetuating it. The moment
I agree.
that's removed, they can't really do anything. So American imperialism can only survive if there's an antagonistic force to reckon with. And I think this modern age of America being like this all-powerful hegemonic imperialist force I think
Mhm.
actually it might actually be doing more damage to the U.S. empire than anything else. Because class
Definitely,
consciousness
yeah.
seems to be on the seems to be growing in the U.S.
Mm.
Limited
was-
though it may be, it's growing. And
I was just talking in the chat just before about it. There's a couple people talking about the revolution going on there. A few people saying that they want it to happen, like not possibly not even a. This is my thoughts now. Possibly not even a revolution in America, but just so much destabilization that they can't do anything internationally. That
well, this
even if
was
they say, oh, there's the big boogeyman out in the Middle East again, we've got to go do something about it. Even
Mhm.
even that in a vain attempt to get some kind of imperial stability, even that's not going to work because they're too degenerated. They'll say like, yeah, we
Mhm.
could go after the big bad that's outside of America, but what about the big bad in America? That massive like grouping of homeless out in the sticks that the police can't move on because they're not being paid to move them on.
And the point is that, like, not only there must be a boogeyman, there must be an enemy, a legitimate enemy, a real existing enemy, and that you could point to and you could that you strive against. And for the longest time, it's been uh, workers co-ops and workers organization,
Mm.
basically. And to this day, we have some governments that are trying to resist neoliberalism, because neoliberalism, like, for neoliberalism, the main enemy is everything that is not market. And as we know, a lot of people don't really like market. Like, they don't really, like, for example, I wouldn't want my healthcare to be privately owned. Thank you. No,
Mm.
I want my healthcare to be free and state owned.
Mm.
I want more funding for it so that it would be better, not to fucking privatize my clinic.
I
It's going
too
to be
don't want to have to pay
terrible.
$100,000 for a rattlesnake bite.
Yeah, like, amazing. Uh, the point is that um, sooner or later, the contradictions inside of neoliberalism are going to push it to the very, very hardline, ultra right wing reactionarism. And we see it all the time happening. And our task is to resist it as much as possible, to point it out, and to get the people on our side. Because when it comes down to the real enemies that neoliberalism points at, like real existing enemies, not some vague terrorist threat, or like angry muzzies running around Syria. When it comes down to legitimate things that capitalism is destroying, which is the welfare and the well-being of the people,
Mm.
the people will get on the side of the people won't get on the side of neoliberalism.
Yeah,
They
it's
won't.
I wanted to say this a second ago. You were talking about neoliberalism going right wing in a similar kind of way. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was this big like anti-corruption protest outside the White House, um,
I haven't actually.
from some of those aforementioned woke white bitches I talked
Hmm.
about earlier. Um, and they will never tell you this, but Democrats and liberals in this country are going through this massive sort of, I like to call it sort of the reaffirmation of myth with them.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
like they're only really mad at Trump. They're only really mad at the White House. But other than that, and sort of because of the chaos that his election is kind of thrown in sort of the governmental workings, and it's sort of like certain sectors of government, like some intelligence agencies, have at least
Hmm.
have at least said negative things about him, and so they've kind of become these like liberal democratic heroes. And because of that, these people are going through this massive kind of reaffirmation of the myth of America, really. Like they're
Hmm.
really starting to become almost kind of patriotic in the sort of, and as a sort of, response to the opposition to Trump within the government. Like they even started chanting, like, there was like some Democratic thing at like Congress or whatever, and it was against Trump, and they actually started chanting USA and shit like that, and that's
God.
kind of, I think that's similar. Like that's sort of how it works with what you were saying with about neoliberalism uh, becoming more right wing and stuff like that. I think that's an example of that.
Well,
Yeah,
not
it
just
tries to
that.
reaffirm its own myth and reaffirm its own reality somehow.
I think what's really
Push it.
polarizing is the other part of politics, which is sort of like the massive, like maybe it's just my accelerationist boner here, but the fact that I know it sounds really sort of stereotypical, but it's like how the center is sort of disappearing as a sort of group. Because let's be honest, when you talk to self-proclaimed centrists in this day and age, what you're really talking to is conservatives, right-wingers.
Yeah.
Mm.
The radical left and the radical right are pretty much the two big factors that are coming. Like, if you like Charlottesville, I know is a dead meme by now, but you sort of look at what happened there. If you had said like even like 3 or 4 years ago, that would never have happened. No way. The
Yeah.
Klan literally making an open comeback.
5 years ago, if they tried to pull off a Charlottesville, it would have been maybe like 10 guys in the KKK hoods, and they would have been chased out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 year ago, was it 1 year ago?
Yeah.
1 year ago, it was huge. I think. I'm sorry, I've been in the chat talking to people, but if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, it's they don't call themselves neo-Nazis, they call themselves alt-right. They don't call themselves fiscally conservative but socially liberal. They call themselves centrists. They change what they are called in order to bring in people who are a little politically ignorant. Now, I don't mean to say ignorant as in to put them down. It's just that they literally don't know what it means. Like, oh, centrist? Well, that sounds like a fair and
Well,
consideration of both the left and the right. That sounds like what I'm for. But this centrist group,
Well,
the hell.
or there is a very, very scary trend. The side window is going hard to the right wing, and we are in a loss. Like, or it is really, really bad news, basically.
well, that's the thing. Like, the thing that makes me hopeful is the fact when I had a Q&A video on my channel recently, and I said something really controversial. I said that the place most likely in the at least in the first world, to have a communist revolution is US. And people sort of look at me and go, "How is that possible?" And well, my theory is of some weird retarded version of horseshoe theory, I suppose. But the more active the right wing gets, the harder left the leftists get.
Yeah, that's general trend, to be honest.
Yeah,
historically.
So like all these liberals who are kind of social democrats are starting to get, well, meme and inaccurate though it may sound, they're starting to get tankier and tankier. They're starting to get harder to the left because with these, like, it's like inverse reactionaries, like a reaction to reaction, as it were. Like it's feeding upon itself. Like, so now that there are
Remember
actual
that-
Nazis, people are becoming actual communists. It's
Remember the new prime minister of New Zealand? What she said during the before, like, she said caps meaning neoliberalism. She meant neoliberalism in that context, but she was really, really viral and very popular because she said capitalism has failed New Zealand. The leftist rhetoric, anti-capitalist leftist rhetoric, communist even rhetoric, is popular and is getting the response to it, even if with the statement. Like
Eugene, you're going a bit robotic.
the
There. I don't quite understand you.
relevancy. Hello, can you hear me?
You might
I
want to
am
try
Robotnik.
reconnecting.
Can you hear
Yep,
me?
Robotnik.
You've gone Robotnik. Oh, the Robotnik curse is back.
Hello?
Yep, there we go.
That sounds better.
But yeah, that's the scary part about it is that Antifa is becoming a thing.
There's,
Like
there's people that were like just outside of Antifa that have been pushed into being Antifa because there's fucking Nazis walking around. And
Hello?
then hello.
Is it better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, my point is that leftist rhetoric, I wanted to quickly finish. Leftist rhetoric is always popular. It's always getting attention. And the more we get into the crisis of neoliberalism, the more we are getting attention because people are looking for another way out. And people and liberals are successfully utilizing our rhetoric by saying stuff like capitalism has failed us in New Zealand, for example.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there when you say
I think it's safe to say we live in a time where most of the population describes themselves as socialist in one way or another.
yeah, it's there's no longer like sitting on the fence or it's like, oh, I'm a little bit this way or I'm a little bit that way. It's like, well, what does that mean? Give us the name to your ideology. We want the cold hard facts. But oh, I'm just a bit to the right. Yeah, but how far? Oh, I kind of like socialism. Yeah, but did you read Marx? It's like you got to have the label. You got to be all in. I'm making a fist, but you can't see it. Yeah, there's no longer like there's no longer we're not in a time where politicians can be in Parliament or the Congress and say, oh, I'm going to support this bill a little bit, because I think it's like, well, does that mean you're a socialist? Well, no, but you supported all of these, socialist things. Like, are you a socialist? Like, well, I'm not too. Well, tell us what you are. Damn it, I want to know.
Yes,
If I can
this is
vote for
why
you or not.
this is why this fucking everybody's throwing labels around. Not only because it's not only on the internet where it happens. Like on the internet, it happens often because there are a lot of young people that are trying to identify themselves in a particular way, in one way or another. That's why they're finding labels for themselves because it's easier. But at the same time, the whole left is going through that. We're going through an identity crisis right now after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was easier back then when it was Marxist-Leninist or fucking Euro-communist, right? And it was like separation, and they were all doing the fucking sectarian game, but that was easy to understand. It was literally, your party gets funding from the fucking Third International or it doesn't, when you're doing communism, which is anti-Soviet. It was really, really easy. Now, what socialism and communism have different meanings. They have different connotations. People are fucking confused, and the radicals are devastated, and we are going through an identity crisis. The question is whether we're going to go out of this identity crisis with something backing us, which is some theory and some legitimate strategies and praxis, and we are, from the looks of it, are going this way. There are many organizations worldwide that are doing some good shit. They're doing some good stuff, and I support those things. Or we're going to go the Nazi route. And the Nazi route is to sit around being angry at the Jews and slowly making friends with Satanists and kill random people in the street because you have to perpetuate the conservative revolution. Read Mason, read Siege. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Mossad did it.
This is why we must do the work. This is why we must have those discussions. This is why we must talk to people and figure and push them into that identity crisis as well.
James Mason, please. Can we just do an episode about Siege by James Mason? I mean, holy shit, that book is a work of art. I don't care what anybody says.
My God, I've read only some parts of it, and somebody explained me the main thesis of the book. But that's it.
No,
Maybe we should. I'll put it somewhere on the list, on the to-do list.
The one thing that gets me is my perception of reading books, right? I've always wanted to do a book review.
Don't lie, you can't read.
Oh yeah, I know. I can't read.
God damn it.
But no, seriously, I wanted to do a book review of Mein Kampf and just do it like as a piece to camera kind of thing. But I would hire an actor to do it, and it would literally just be this edgy emo dude with stretches and piercings, like. Because that's what it sounds like. It just sounds like this teenager who's angry against the world. Like,
Yeah,
I
an
hate
fucking
everybody.
edgy teen. Like, I'm gonna get
Doctrine
those guys.
Mussolini's doctrine of fascism is even worse. Like it's
Yeah.
literally just like this stupid fucking Shadow the Hedgehog tiered dialogue.
Mm.
Just
Oh,
god awful.
I was trying to
The
explain.
best fascist. There is one good fascist literature, one good fascist text, which is very, very good, and it is the Futurist Manifesto, the Italian Futurist Manifesto. It's actually good. It's a bit delusional if you read a bit more about fascism from fascists, right? But it talks. It's really cool. It's like it talks about fascism being the idea, like and all of that stuff. And you're like, yeah, this is fun. And and then you open like some fascist literature and you look at it, and it's like, hey, there's just a bunch of angry teenagers. What is going on? Like, but if you don't read anything and you just read the Futurist Manifesto, it's actually pretty cool. Like the way it's written and the way it's trying to portray fascism. Unfortunately, like it's. I remember when I was writing the emails manifesto, which I will redo a bit soon. I mentioned futurism and said that futurism saw fascism as the revolutionary ideology of the future, and fascism failed its revolutionary potential. It didn't bring whatever it was promising. Now we realize that it's just reactionarism and it's just attempt to safeguard
The
the
EML manifesto
property.
is just read Siege by James Mason. Like that's literally all it is. It's just literally just copy and pasting the entirety of Siege by James Mason. That's the EML manifesto.
Well, what you don't understand is fascism is a form of socialism. Indeed, its most workable form.
Jesus.
Oh god.
I was trying to explain something along the lines of this. I was trying to say it before. I was talking to a friend of mine saying like, "Oh, how can you?" They were saying to me, "How can you like be a proponent of this thing that hasn't changed since the Bolsheviks during the revolution? Like, it's the same as fascism. They're the same thing." I'm like, "Hold on a second. It's called the immortal science." But like beyond the meme, like socialists and communists and to left comes to an extent, we try to say like, how could socialism exist in Australia? How could it exist in the UK? Oh, look, this new technology that has changed how we think about society has actually made socialism even more possible. Oh, let's change what we believe based on what's observed. This is great. Hold on a second. Let's just see what fascism's up to. And they're still like worshipping
Bickering
us.
about fucking 45.
Yeah. Oh my god, guys! What was it? 1933 to 1945 for Germany was absolutely fantastic. Let's emulate that. Let's just do that again. Like, oh god damn it!
Yeah, it's really bad.
Let's go to Russia
It's
in
really
winter.
fucking bad.
Russia, let's invade Russia in winter. This is a good plan. Everything will be
Yeah.
fine.
It'll work a third time. Third time's the charm.
A fourth time, Napoleon did it first.
Oh fuck, you're right.
Did he? Did he did it in winter? I forgot.
Yeah, Napoleon launched an invasion in.
No, he did it in summer
Russia.
and then got stuck
Yeah.
because
Yeah, he
Because-
stuck around until winter when he fucking lost. I
Yeah.
remember.
It wasn't just the winter; it was him losing his niche for battle and whatnot. He'd basically just throw more men down the center than he could really afford to throw down the center, and he'd just
Yeah.
lose hundreds of thousands of people.
no, because
Well, not
seriously,
hundreds, tens of
the-
thousands.
We
the
have
Tsar-
been
the
doing
Tsar
this
just
for 2
literally did
hours
it.
almost.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
but the-
All right. Do you think maybe it's time to
I
wrap
think
it up
it's time
then?
to go because we already started discussing fucking Napoleon and shit.
Napoleon. I'll have
permanent
you know,
Jacobin revolution.
Napoleon was an asshole.
No,
He was the
Napoleon,
true Jacobin.
Napoleon was the first trot. Permanent Jacobin revolution. Glasex is right.
Napoleon was a Trotsky. Trotskyite.
Napoleon was
he was a
Trotsky.
Trotskyite. I remember the theory. He was the Trotsky to the Jacobins. Yeah.
Jesus. All right. Well, since we've been going for 2 hours, I just want to say thank you to everyone in the comments section and the viewers for coming back. Thank you to Positive Pac-Man, Eugene, Sockbarb, Spoogs, Batco, and Big Guy Liam, Big Liam. Guys, any last words before we go?
Read Siege by James Mason. Like literally, that's all you need to know.
Well,
Literally nothing else is of any importance.
well, all I'm going to say is, in keeping with my party doctrine, just so you know, I actually do have the solution to South American socialism. It is very heavily armed, and it is very, very fast moving.
I don't
Watch
think
this.
do any South American countries have nukes? I don't think they do.
No.
They will when I'm
No.
done with them.
Nope. We have to nuclearize the global south.
Give nukes
This
to
is the
Argentina,
third
nukes to
worldism.
Falklands.
that is a good last word right there. Nuclearize the South America.
Nuclearize Argentina, and then blast the Falklands. Kick it off. Let's go.
All right. Thank you,
Before
everybody.
I have one last word also.
Yep.
I have a last word to say. First of all, look into Mouse Spontax. The video about it is coming out tomorrow. There is another video coming out today, which is the second part of the our episode on Friedrich Engels' Origin of the Family. It's coming out today, hopefully. So also the podcast will be tomorrow, hopefully again. Maybe American morning around that time. Maybe I don't know. It's job time zones and fucking rendering time. I'm sorry, folks. We have to. That's a lot of time. Also, I'm going through today. Hopefully today, I'm going to do some changes to our social media / our pages on Patreon and Ko-fi and stuff like that. So be aware of this. There are some changes coming to the rewards, to the everything. I'm going to be a bit more simplistic, but okay. And for our Patreons, there will be some posts on the timeline. We're going to live it up a bit. Our Patreon will be filled with some extra shit. What else? I guess that's it from the point of announcements. Yeah, that's it.
Except subscribe to me.
Yeah, subscribe to everyone that has been here. So this Pac-Man, everyone. Yeah, that's it. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Please support us on Patreon and message us on Twitter and on the Discord. For me personally, it feels good to be back, and hopefully in 1 week's time we can do this again. Hope to see you all then. Catch you later, everybody.
To the Discord!